on the big boy or something?
How about now? Is there sound now?
Maybe.
Is everyone happy?
Are we number one? Like,
Let's see.
Is this the first interview? Are we the guinea pigs?
Yes, you are the guinea pigs. You are the guinea pigs.
Good.
Is it working now, people?
Oh, yeah.
See? I knew what I was doing.
That is everything that's in the Starfinder playtest rule.
Well, sorry, everyone.
Sorry, that's it. Bye.
Hey, look, what do you want? I just carried 50 pounds worth of crap through Gen Con all day for this interview so that you guys can learn all about Starfinder. Is it official? Can I say the name or are we going to get in trouble?
No, you can say it.
Starfinder 2nd edition. Oh no! Did I just ruin it?
It's so good. I don't have to call it by its code name anymore.
What was the code name?
Eric, we were good to say the code name?
Yeah. Sure.
The code name was Veskmas, so for the longest time we had Obo Zaya with a little Santa hat on as our symbol, and we would just be like, Merry Veskmas, everybody, and that would be our internal joke.
The Vesk. Oh, I get it. Vesk.
Veskmas. Yeah.
See, it's such a nonsense word, even if someone heard it.
Exactly.
What we were talking
But if you knew, then you would know, and code words are fun.
Code words are fun. So why don't you recap? Now, I didn't actually watch it, but you told me about it a few days ago.
Yeah.
And then I was yelled at to not spoil it.
Right. Usually a helpful step with Steven. We by the way, I'm Erik Mona. I'm the publisher at Paizo, and we're here with
Hi, I'm a guy. Hi, my name is Thurston Hillman. I am the managing creative director for Starfinder.
There you go.
So earlier today, we just wrapped up the Paizo Gen Con Keynote address, where we talked about a lot of upcoming cool things for Pathfinder, lots of cool things for Starfinder, but probably the biggest news coming out of that was the Starfinder 2nd edition announcement, which is pretty a big deal. So we not only just announced, but we released a PDF for people to check out about what's coming out. Thirsty, you're the creative director for Starfinder, so maybe you can talk a little bit about what's going on that front.
Yeah, sure. First of all, it was Eric's idea for the field test, so it came out of his smart brain, because we were like, we shouldn't probably announce a new edition of a game and not give people anything and be like, wait till next year. Okay, thanks, bye. And this actually led to a really good discussion. So before I dive into exactly the field test, one of the talks we had was we wanted to announce it early so we could do something different. Really, I'm going to use this buzz term a lot, but this is the most open playtest Paizo's ever done, or that's the plan. Because our goal is to release as much information as we can about this, engage with the community in a way we haven't done before. You'll note that these field tests are not they're not like a play test, right? They're not we're not like, here's like the play test. It's a field test. It's actually meant for people to read it, maybe mess around with it, give us some opinions on it. There's no survey with this. We're getting to a play test next year. What this is like give you behind the scenes on what we're sort of doing in the design and development land on this. So our first field test that we've released has the new soldier class, levels 1 through 5. It includes some guns, because if you're going to play a soldier, you want some guns, and then it also includes some creatures. A couple of critters like a laser wolf that you can shoot those guns at, like all the circle of encounter life.
So I think one of the just big picture for a second is we announced the development of Pathfinder 2nd edition, or Starfinder 2nd edition rather, and it's going to be compatible with Pathfinder 2nd edition. So ever since we put out P2, people have been clamoring, when is the 3-action economy going to come to Starfinder? When can we see some of the other cool innovations like the degrees of success and whatnot built into our science fiction game? And the answer is we're going to be releasing a full playtest book for that next year at Gen Con at 2024, and then in 2025 we'll do the full game release. And so what Thirsty's talking about with these field tests, and the first one dropped today, is just some sneak peeks. I mean, maybe think of it like an alpha on the way to the full playtest book, which is going to be a beta. And that way, because the Starfinder team is soliciting feedback and we're talking to everybody, by the time that playtest comes out, we're expecting it to be fairly really solid, right? It's also based on the Pathfinder 2.0 rules, and so a lot of the kind of core system design is already there. And so it's about how do we map those concepts to science fantasy Thursday, and then we can spend the bulk of that playtest on really fine tuning and polishing and adding material that people say, hey, I love it, but how about if it had this or whatever. So I'm really looking forward. It's going to be essentially a 2-year process, and so it starts 2 hours ago or whatever, and it will continue on until Gen Con 2024 with the release of a playtest book, and then on to the full release in 2025.
And then this field test isn't like a one and done. Field test number 1 infers there will probably be more field tests. I was joking. I wrote like a 2,600 word blog that's going to talk about some of our playtesting experience internally. We're really wanting to put a lot of content out there. We're talking about like streaming some of our internal playtests and just being like, hey, we're going to bring you on board so you can see. A funny thing about the field test for the soldier, couple, like a day or two before Gen Con, we're like, oh shoot, one of the feats the soldier has is actually a same name as a barbarian feat. Let's go. Like, that's how behind the scenes, like we haven't gone through all of our, usual rigors, editing passes and checks. Like, this is us kind of, here's the cliff notes of what we're messing around with before we've really refined it. We want to show this to you, like, are we going the right direction?
So this will be using the Starfinder it's going to keep
Paizo patented engine.
I know. Paizo patented engine. How about that? Can we call it GURPS? Has that been used?
No.
Yes, that's been used.
No. Okay. Sorry. Pathfinder 2nd Edition engine. But is it going to be just sort of flavored with Starfinder, or are you guys going to actually rewrite part of it, or is it just too early in the process? In other words, are you going to even maybe reuse like Pathfinder feats and just put them in the Starfinder, or would you like relabel it? You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine you have a character class that has the same feats that, I don't know, a fighter and Pathfinder uses. Would you like just use the same feats for both systems, or would you try to keep it within Starfinder?
I'm going to let Thurston take that, but I certainly have a thought.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that's key to the class design of Starfinder 2nd Edition is, you hear soldier and you think fighter in space, so probably they're going to have some of the same feats, right? Well, no. We're designing these classes so they are entirely different. Like, the soldier is not fighter in space. The operative is not rogue in space, for example. Clear analogies there. We want these classes to work in the ecosystem, because when we talk about 100% compatibility, we mean 100% compatibility. You can take these classes and port them over to your Pathfinder games. And in some of these cases, some of these classes kind of work without some of the techie bits as well. We want to flavor a lot of the classes and make sure when we're introducing these that they work. But some of the classes we're messing around with, a good example right now would be like the Mystic. The Mystic is a healer type class that does it in a very different way from, say, a cleric would in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But we want people to be able to take a Mystic and bring it into their Pathfinder games. Now, when we're talking about the rules elements like class feats and skill feats and things like that, probably when we're looking at a playtest rulebook, we're going to make an assumption that people hey, might have the player core. We don't want to reprint, the tactical rules for the game and make you, have to rebuy that when you already have access to it, and we're going to kind of assume it. We don't want to, give you a 600-page playtest book, because a lot of that engine, like Erik said, is already created. Now, when we release the final version of this game, we want this to be a standalone game, right? Like, we will likely be releasing this in similar models to what we've done before, and what we're looking to do with the remaster. And it also stands to reason, with the remaster that we're doing, like, all of the Starfinder work is based off of that remaster engine. So.
Well, one of the cool things about what we're doing now, kind of behind the scenes, is as we're going through that process for the remaster, for stuff like the player core and the GM core, and then what's currently in development, the monster core, and then we're leading into player core 2, we can kind of pull the Starfinder team in during that process and say, okay, here's what we're thinking for this. Would that also work if we were to extrapolate that to lasers and jetpacks and things like that? So the both games are having a lot more integrated design process than they've ever had before, which is going to be really, really exciting. But I want to just kind of reiterate something Thurston said, which is that Starfinder is its own game. It's going to have its own core rulebooks. It's going to have whole sections on technology and vehicles, and I think we can get a lot deeper in some of that stuff in Starfinder than we ever really would need to in Pathfinder. You certainly don't have to spend a lot of time talking about faster than light travel in Pathfinder. I mean, I guess you could, but Starfinder will probably have quite a lot of that kind of stuff into it. And then, of course, the setting is also something that we're going to carry forward into Starfinder Second Edition as well.
We had a funny thing just on that where we're like looking at deities as a great example here. We're putting in deity stat blocks for some of the Starfinder deities and like including domains. Currently, none of the classes we have for Starfinder interact with domains, but we realized, well, we should put it in there because if someone wants to play a cleric of a Starfinder deity, we want to have that information available. And so there's going to be some fun overlap in how we do some of this that'll make these systems gel really well.
So I do see questions, and of course, ask questions. We'll try to answer them. One of the big ones I see here is EAC and KAC. How is that going to be handled?
It's not. It's going to be armor class. I want to stress this because I know people have been bitten in the past by other games. When we say 100% compatible, we really mean it this time. You can take a bestiary monster. I know I'm worrying Erik here, but like this is how we're approaching it. Like you can take a monster out of Monster Core, drop it into a Starfinder game, and it will run as written. That is the level of compatibility that we are going for here.
So basically, you are fully committed, and correct me if I'm wrong, to make it work with Pathfinder Second Edition rule sets, and that if you have to move things over, like you have to get rid of EAC and KAC and turn it into AC, so be it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're not really sticking with any kind of sacred cow rules from Starfinder 1. We want to, I mean, a lot of things will be the same and a lot of things will be carried over thematically. But in terms of just the raw mechanics, we've got a system in the Pathfinder 2 system that people are really, really like. And in particular, the way the action economy works, in particular, I think the degrees of success, those are all very, very important. And also, just making, every time we revise one of these games, we're thinking about, accessibility and teaching new people how to play, learning the game. And so trying to streamline those systems to make it easier without losing some of the kind of complexity and customizability that both Pathfinder and Starfinder are so famous for. That's really ultimately our goal.
So one question I had, or Mark had, are you ready for a Mark question?
Oh yeah, bring it, Sifter.
Flying. How's it gonna be
flying.
handled? Because
Okay.
it's extreme. I mean, he knows, quote, the rules, of course, for how it works in Pathfinder. And he's like, the rules for flying in Starfinder are very different than Pathfinder. Now, how's that going to work?
All right, Mister. I designed the sprite. So a few things. I'm going to answer that, but I want to talk a broad topic that's important. We talk about this game being 100% compatible, and the rules mechanically are going to be 100% compatible. But these games exist in a different meta state, in that there are different assumptions about how these games work. A good one is in Starfinder, you're going to have a lot of people who have guns, right? Like, a common action for a spellcaster that we found in our playtests is I cast a spell and then I cast gun. It makes sense, it works. So a lot of characters assume to have a ranged weapon. When we're looking at something like Ancestries, certainly one of the more, I would say, back and forth pieces of feedback we have about Ancestries and PF2 is, flying Ancestries and how there's like the tiered approach to it. That exists in Pathfinder for a lot of good reasons. I mean, certainly flying can trivialize entire encounters, because if you have one guy who flies with a short bow and they're fighting a guy with a great axe, it's going to be a bad time. In our game, we don't have that assumption. In our game, we assume everyone has guns. So because everyone has guns, the flying character's ability to maneuver and like just rain death from above isn't as much of a problem. And so we're looking at, and I've had talks with Jason Bowman about this like our Ancestries, if you have a little ball of protoplasm that floats around or flies, it's going to fly at first level. That's what's going to happen in our game. You're still going to have Ancestry feats and ways to customize it, but we're going to have some different assumptions for certain power level elements, because these games do exist independently, and then your GM, if they want to do the excellent mishmash campaign, they get the fun of sort of bringing that together. And part of our goal is to provide guidelines for people on what to do and how to handle certain things as they bring them over.
I see. They say even the wolves will have laser guns.
Yeah.
The sharks will have guns.
The wolves have lasers coming out
The mouths, yeah.
There you go. But they obviously, so like in theory, like you don't start getting flying until, I forgot what it is for Pathfinder, but it's like 9th, 11th level or something. But in Starfinder, you can get it first level, I think, second, third. It's
some of these ancestries we're looking at, having it built in.
Yeah.
Because at the same point, you'll probably be able to buy a jetpack at a lower level, and how he can handle that sort of stuff is, assumedly there will be some rules that will indicate, like, okay, you're playing in a Starfinder game, all this stuff uses the Starfinder rarity system. Oh, are you a Pathfinder player? Well, anything from Starfinder probably has a rare and or unique rarity, right? So there's that's where these games are compatible and allow us to do this, but these meta states are different, right?
I see. Oh, they wanted to know where my blue shirt was, Eric.
Well, that's staff only.
Yeah.
I know. That's okay. I'm not staff. I'm just I'm a super fan. I'll call you. Is that what?
Where's my $10 super fan tip? That's how it works on your channel, right? Where's my super chats?
Hey man, you get super chats. You guys, those get answered right away. We actually had a super chat. But it would happen so long ago that it might have disappeared. Oh, there it is. Eric, why do you have to bring so much hype? First the 10 books, then the remaster, and now all of this. I don't know how much more hyped I can get.
I can't turn it off. I don't know. I'm so excited. It's just fun. When you're working on something you love and you're working on it with people who love what they're doing, it's really, really exciting. And one of the neat things about this time of year is, I'm checking in. We just did big presentations to our licensing partners the last week, and it's really my opportunity to kind of go back in. All these books are mid-process, so I'm sneaking into the working files, and I'm calling Thurston and be like, send me that sketch you just got yesterday, and I'm getting to see it kind of for the first time, which as the publisher doesn't really happen that often. By the time a book comes out, I've probably already seen it. I already know there's a typo on page 37 or whatever. And so it's not quite that same level of hype that you might get, seeing something legit for the first time. And so for me, I'm legitimately seeing some of this stuff essentially for the first time. And that excitement is just I got to channel it somewhere. So
we are getting specific questions. I don't know if you have answers, but how will reload work?
I just saw that, yeah.
In Starfinder 2. Let's see. Want to play a bit with the soldier, but it seems that usage plus charges solve the reloading after every shot, but how to reload the charges themselves, one action per charge.
Yeah, so this is something that, again, goes into that meta state of the games. Guns in Starfinder tend to have magazines, or like a battery you're slotting in. So the assumption is that when when you have a gun, it comes with a magazine that holds 20 bullets, or a battery that has 20 charges, which is great and awesome. But there is a certain amount that goes on when you're using those weapons of I shoot again because I don't need to reload because there's charges in the weapon, so you can shoot back to back to back. And now we're balancing that against a lot of how, say, Pathfinder works with reload actions that we have to really look into. A good example of this was we had a playtest last week. We had a gunslinger operating alongside an operative, and the operative has a sniper rifle that they don't need to reload, but they are taking these actions to aim and then shoot and fire. But the sniper rifle has an unwieldy trait on it, so it can only be shot once. You can only make one strike with it in a round. Whereas you have someone like an arquebus gunslinger played by Michael Sayer, who comes in and is like, I run up, I fire my boomstick, I reload behind a guy, I fire my boomstick again. He was actually firing more than these weapons because we're looking at some of that internal balance for them. But generally, you're not going to have just reload between shots.
And we have another super chat. How will the 7+ rank spells work with the new lore?
But yeah, that's just a fun thing we get to play around with now. I know our senior developer Jenny Jarzabski's super excited about this. Same with Jessica Catalan, our Starfinder Society developer. Both of them are very passionate about magic being a thing in our science fantasy setting. Well, for how we're doing it is we're just giving it 10 level spells. As far as how the lore is impacted by that, the downplaying of spellcasting was always sort of like a nebulous element of the setting, and it's one we're just going to look at and go, yeah, magic exists alongside technology. Technology replaces certain things. Again, the fly spell will still exist, but maybe it's not as useful when you can buy a jetpack at first level, and that's sort of the state we will be living in with the game.
And so this is obviously early, but what is the initial items that you're going to port over? you feel like you're gonna, because obviously so much of Starfinder has been built out over the years. Are you gonna start with the core rules? Are you gonna re-examine the classes and the ancestries or species and decide, are you gonna use the same ones that were in the core rules for Starfinder? Or are you gonna maybe mix and match kind of the way Pathfinder 2nd Edition did? Or is it way too early to look at that?
Well, we did our keynote today, and we maybe showed off that we have a new core ancestry in there, the Patra, who first showed up in Alien Archive 2. They're going to be a core ancestry. As far as like individual equipment and what classes, we haven't revealed all of the classes that we're doing yet. Maybe you can kind of start piecing it together from what we're saying, but we haven't given out like a complete list. We're porting over what feels right in a lot of ways. We're looking at the system holistically and going, okay, well, what do we need? What's gonna like improve the setting? One fun thing was we're going through equipment and we're like, well, we have all these deities. We should probably have deity favored weapons in there, and that pushed a lot of where we started with some of our weapons. And then, the common things like, okay, here's your laser rifle, here's your flamethrower. Like, we're trying to hit some of these staples first, but there's so much to mine from Starfinder that we want to pick, some choice favorites.
I think it's also important to point out that this isn't just like a one and done. This is like a 2-year-long playtest, and then we'll put out the full, rule book set, and we'll continue to support the game for a while. So there will be a lot of returning friends. There will be, I think, a lot of brand new stuff. There'll be maybe some Pathfinder sort of familiar stuff with a new shine on it in Starfinder. So the core book parentheses S will definitely have a lot of the stuff from the whole corpus of Starfinder, but we will continue to supplement those core books with some of the stuff that didn't make the cut, brand new stuff, etc.
Now, again, I know it's really early, but obviously Starfinder Society is very popular. Yeah. So what are like the plans? I mean, I guess things are just going to be same old for the next year or so, and then you'll just keep going. You just use the new rules. Presumably.
We're committed to the next 2 seasons. So the season we just launched and one more season. After that, we're starting the conversations right now, internally. We want to bring some of the organized play folks into it. We're having these talks right now of what organized play looks like. We're not really ready to talk all the specifics because it's so far out, right? But certainly we want to make sure that this game is going to be accessible, that it's going to have a robust system. We've got 2 years. Let's make the most of it to get the program to where we need it to be for when we launch.
Well, and I think, too, just speaking from the very top, and I think historically we've proven this, but, Paizo is a company that is like very dedicated to the concept of organized play. I met Thurston through organized play, and so I started my career in organized play. A lot of people involved with Starfinder.
So did Linda.
So did Jessica Kavanaugh.
Everyone on the Starfinder team right now.
Yeah, and so that is like, the idea of maybe a Starfinder not having a organized play presence is like, that is very alien to all of us. So, what the exact manifestation of that will be, what kind of relationship that has with the current campaign, anywhere from a very, very strong relationship to, something that's more of something else, I think it's still just, in the interest of the open spirit of the playtest, is still TBD, but in terms of Paizo's commitment to organized play, that is unassailable.
So
we got a full room upstairs, that sold out before the show even started. So, we're very, 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 very committed to organized play.
So how soon before we get the Starfinder, Pathfinder crossover adventure path? 2026? 2027? Eric's being quiet.
It's not going to be in 2023.
Well, okay.
Innocent whistle,
It's just like... But everyone's gonna, that's the first thing. You already saw it in the chat. People are like, when's the crossover?
Numeria is pretty cool. Like, I don't know.
I like Numeria.
Yeah, it'd be fun to revisit that setting, and that might be one way to do it.
We should talk to people. Yeah, that'd be neat.
I don't think, and again, open playtest, right? Yeah. I don't really love the idea of an adventure series that requires you to have core rulebooks from 2 different games.
Yeah.
So I think it might be more something like, let's just take an example of something you've already done, which is the Iron Gods adventure path.
My favorite
We would
adventure
do
path.
that as a Pathfinder adventure path, but then when we're introducing those technology rules and things into the context of that campaign, we would make sure that they work hand in glove with the Starfinder rules. And then if you're wanting to add a little bit around the fringes of that, you can go to your alien book and add some more creatures, and that should work more or less seamlessly. But I think we might do a little chocolate and the peanut butter. A little peanut butter and the chocolate. But we're probably not going to do the 50-50 chocolate peanut butter. You have to have 8 core rulebooks from 2 different systems.
Yeah, I think a good example of this that came up a lot from Starfinder First Edition was just the sheer number of time we would like reference a Pathfinder creature. Like, oh, you're going to the, to the plains and boo, a demon hops out. Well, okay, we're going to have our own bespoke demons and, other cool entities in our game. But sometimes it's nice to be able to just like, I can reference the Hellhound stat block from the monster core, and that's something that's just gonna be great for like home gyms and people who are running their own home campaigns. But if we want to do like a fun little little bit of chocolate in there, we can toss in like a micro stat block that's like, oh yeah, go see monster core for this Hellhound thing. And because of open gaming, that commitment is there and that accessibility is there.
Well, and you'll be able to just go online and find that stat for free without having to buy a whole new book.
And then that saves us having to, reprint an entire stat block for like a fun little crossover, which in the past, would eat up pages where we could put in more new content for people, which is what they really want, right?
You know what? I see a joke here. It says, oh, you're still going to have angels with laser rifles.
Yeah.
As the person who was tasked to rewrite the Bargist for Starfinder, which was me, they basically like more lasers on the Bargist. And I was like, and it's the same creature, but one has lasers and one doesn't. Yeah. But now you don't need to do that. You just have one. And then if you want to add lasers, you can.
I guess that's true.
It opens up some, again, really cool design space. If we want that Bargist with a laser, we can copy the Bargist stat block and then add a laser line to it helps us in so many ways. It also helps streamline how we do these books. Like our editors don't have to know like as much like it really helps us drill down and make this the best game it can be.
So obviously the Purple GM has a very prominent question of ship combat. It's probably way off and you can't talk about it, but what are your goals for it and what are you looking for having feats for ship combat, or what you consider a character sheet for ship feats? So like, how is combat going to work for ships?
We're looking, Starship combat is certainly like a key element of Starfinder. That being said, we're going to take the time and do it right. That's the thing I will say. We are not going to push something out or have something that we don't feel proud of, and we are going to spend the time to get Starship combat right for this game.
I want to add too, when we say it's not just us, it's the community.
Absolutely.
That's one of those areas where I think we're going to really be paying attention to playtest feedback, getting as much thought from the community as possible.
Absolutely.
Because I think we're, without telling too many tales out of school, I would expect us to take sort of a different approach than what we've done so far with Starship combat. And there's certainly some folks who really like it, and it plays an important role thematically in a lot of the adventures and things. But I think that some folks don't want a hugely complex side system, and other people do. And we're going to have to figure out the best way to accommodate those folks and give people something that works in kind of a narrative sense, but also works in a deeper dive sort of a sense. And how that will turn out will be largely dependent on what Thurston and his team come up with, but also what we hear back in terms of whether that stuff appears in one of the field tests, but certainly in the play test itself. I'd say that's in part because that's a part of the system that isn't just like, oh, well, of course we're doing it the way you do it in Pathfinder. That means that we need to pay extra attention to make sure that that's as awesome as it possibly can be.
So what secrets? Give me some dirt. Come on, something, anything.
Something.
That's going to be cool and new and something you're able to now do because you're using those Pathfinder rules that you couldn't as easily do in Starfinder, maybe.
So there are a lot of things, and it's really hard to like key in. I'm also
give me a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking of like what we want to talk about and what we're saving, because like this is a journey, right?
Yeah.
We certainly have like tent poles we want to hit along the way and provide, make sure we're baking in the oven. But we're talking about cool stuff like. All right, one thing I'm really enjoying is how it makes classes feel in gameplay. 3-action economy, I mean, it's great. And it allows us to have a very different dynamic with some of these classes. We've been playtesting, internally the Mystic. The Mystic right now, here's something new. The Mystic right now has something called a Vitality Network. That's just a pool of hit points that sits there, and at like 5th level, it's somewhere in like 30 hit points. And this pool is there, and they form a bond with all their buddies. Everyone is in the party as part of this bond, and they can spend one action to take any amount of hit points out of that network and send it to someone. One action. You can heal someone 30 hit points for one action.
You basically email them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which creates this really, really interesting. Yeah, we call it. Dustin in chat is saying it. We called it the sippy cup because it's like I'm going to send some of the sippy cup over there, which created a really interesting game state, which we couldn't really replicate in an easy way in say the old edition, because like as a healer you can be like, I divert like hit points from this network and also I'm casting a spell, or I'm diverting hit points and taking a shot with my gun. I joked about it earlier, but spellcasters in this game get a really fun situation of like, I cast a spell and then I cast gun. It's a very interesting dynamic where we actually give people a lot of options and they can choose how their turns are going. So like when we're talking about like what can you do, that just opens things up.
So when it comes to having ancestries, sort of the common ancestries like humans, dwarves, elves, so forth, since they're already going to be in Pathfinder when they appear in Starfinder 2nd Edition, is it literally going to be the exact same statistics, like just reprinted because it's exactly the same? Or is there going to be subtle differences? Because I'm trying to figure out, if you picture my brain, I'm trying to figure out how it's siloed differently, because obviously they're two different worlds, but it's the same rule system. So where do you draw the line? Like, do you make the humans exactly the same for both systems, or are there subtle differences? Now, obviously, classes can be completely different because, one's a soldier, one's a fighter, but humans, if they're using the same rule system, wouldn't they be identical, or am I completely off?
They can be identical at a core, but when we look at something like the ancestry feat system,
that's where I think
that's the secret sauce. And heritage is another good example. Like, we've been working on ancestries internally. Yosoki have a couple heritages right now, like Ratfolk and the PF2 ecosystem. They have a couple of heritages that don't make as much sense in our game. Like, they have a heritage for like a sewer rat. That's cool. It doesn't make as much sense for our game, so we're probably pulling that one out and putting a different one in. We're probably looking at like, this one, feat that allows you to better survive in like warm weather environments. Well, that one's not going to be as great because you're going to have armor and all these protections that are going to help you out. Now, one area where this makes it really interesting to me, and it's a pitch I'm going to give to Erik, but for a book, it's like we could do a book that like goes over a bunch of core Pathfinder stuff, like elves and dwarves. And it's like, here's a new page of ancestry feats for them. Yeah. Like, here's the rock sauce specialist dwarf ancestry feat. Like, we can do some really interesting additions to the system through this.
So basically, the core can stay the same, but then you can just have tons of specialization for Pathfinder and Starfinder, so it's unique within that world.
Absolutely.
Or if you're playing one or the other, and you like one from the other book, you can just go, ooh, hey, GM, I guess it's rare.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I use this? And the GM goes, sure. Or the GM goes, no, that's about starships. There's no starships in my campaign.
So, what's going on?
Lights flickering.
Gen Con, After Dark.
Hello.
So does that mean I'm now going to be having people say, hey, I found this really cool hand grenade and laser gun for my level 3 fighter in Pathfinder? Is that okay if I bring it into the game?
Your GM's cool with it. I
think that could happen. Yeah. I think, but once you lay down some rules, people will understand kind of where you stand on that as a GM. But if you're running a very permissive game, for example, I think you could end up getting that question a lot.
Oh boy, I already see it.
I mentioned it before, but yeah, we ran an operative with a gunslinger playtest the other week just to see like, how do these two classes operate alongside each other? Results were very promising, but you know what? that's the type of environment we want. I mean, here's an anecdote, and it's a little tidbit of lore. And some spoilers on some spells.
Ooh.
So we have this mystic who I've explained the Vitality Network, and Michael Sayer, our rules and lore manager, has come into a playtest with me and the rest of the team, who I should also just take a moment to introduce. There's myself. I've already introduced myself. But then we have, senior developer Jenny Jarzabski, we have developer Dustin Knight, and then we have Starfinder Society developer Jessica Catalan. We were all in a playtest. Michael Sayer came in to play this gunslinger. We're doing this. It was really, fun, gotta go shoot some space fascists. It was great. And then I threw a giant robot at them that had a chainsaw arm. And of course, Michael Sayer's gunslinger gets a crit in round 2, takes off half of its hit points, then proceeds to get greedy, fires, and his gun misfires, and he's on the backup gun, and then the backup gun misfires, and he's got this thing with a giant chainsaw bearing down on him. And one of the iconic moments from that playtest, we all loved it, was this happens, and Michael's on the other side of a hallway, and this robot's coming and is doing a quarter of his health with a regular hit. It's grim, folks. And Dustin's tapped out that Vitality Network. The sippy cup is empty at this point, but he's got a spell, and he's like, I've got a healing spell. Okay, it's this spell I have called Motivating Ringtone, where you call where you call the guy's cell phone and it heals them and plays an anthem, and that's my heal spell. And then he's like, I'm gonna cast, and then he has this moment of, but the gunslinger doesn't have a cell phone. And the whole table has this moment. But that is such an anachronistic, science fantasy in your fantasy moment. And that's that to me is just the essence of the game, right? That's what we want.
Wow. I already see we have a question here. Actually, this is a good question. Are we going to get Pathfinder and Starfinder traits to help sort out which is which, especially if we're going to start doing crossover between the traits? Or no, that's far from the distance, but I can start seeing it getting perhaps.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh wow, we stumped you.
No, only in that I don't think we've quite got there yet.
Right.
I think the trait. Okay, if I were to say if there was a Starfinder and Pathfinder trait, I think the trait default would be what's the title on the book, right? I think when you look at something though, organized play, certainly organized play is where this becomes very tricky, and we have to come up with guidelines and all sorts of rules.
Right.
Not cross the streams too much. Yeah. But I think at a default we're assuming these games are separate, but the compatibility is what your group wants it to be and what your group is comfortable with.
I'm gonna just go very lightly on record and say I kind of hope we don't have to do that.
Absolutely.
I think it can be handled much more on a book by book kind of basis.
In other words, you're going to have an extra trait or 2 characters on everything.
Yeah.
SF, it's going to get clunky after a while.
I think so.
And I think we'll provide guidance for this. Once we hit the release of these, the main rule books after the play test, the team is very passionate about having a section in there that talks about using elements from other games. So if you want to run Pathfinder, here's things to consider. Much like how we have GM advice in the Game Mastery Guide right now, we can talk about that as part of what we're providing.
I see. So what about Foundry VTT and other VTT setups? People are asking, how are you going to handle that for this? Or was it still way too early?
We look forward to working with our partners on all that stuff. I think until the game actually comes out, I don't know that we have so much for it. I think that it'll be interesting once we get to the play test. Maybe there's a way to implement some of that. But I just, I had lunch with one of our VTT partners an hour ago. I'm having a meeting with another one tomorrow. And we'll be talking about all that stuff. Right now they're chewing on the remaster for Pathfinder and getting that all sorted out. So until there's actually a system to plug in, I don't have all the answers for that, but I will say, VTTs are an increasingly important part of the RPG landscape and our business, and the idea of not having, certainly the final version of the game on a VTT is just unconscionable. So yes, I'm willing to say we will have VTT support for certainly the final version of the Starfinder game, and we will explore with our partners what makes sense within the realm of the playtest. Because that's going to be going on for a year.
In a year, like
I know.
This is how early
year
we
before
are,
that,
you know.
right,
But
so-
we've already had, at least one partner, Demiplane, come out and announce, their intent to support Starfinder with Starfinder Nexus. Like the excitement is there from people, and like Erik said, we're gonna work with people to do what we can because we all play these games too, and trust me, I want those mods.
Speaking of Demiplane, I need to leave for my meeting with them in about 5 minutes.
No,
Okay, here we go.
We'll do 5 more minutes and
right,
then we'll
sounds
wrap it
good.
up. And it
Yeah.
says here, the Pathfinder 2 team already released the field test module today. So look at that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They're on top of it.
Well, I the field test module. Wait, what?
For the Foundry.
I guess for Foundry.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. They're very
They are very fast.
Getting that soldier.
Oh, look at that. I made a soldier for Pathfinder. So look at that.
There you go.
That's how fast people are.
Isn't like having a cool community great?
Yeah, I know. All right, I can't wait.
I'm super stoked about the barrage fire and stuff. There's some cool rules in that field test.
The I shoot a gun and laugh, and if you're like just
It's all
like,
area of effect based and stuff.
yeah,
so
well, and
I'm
that's
pretty stoked.
that goes back. These classes are not just like fighter in space. Like the soldier uses area of effect weapons, and that's the thing we want to hone in on.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah,
Can we call the feat now? I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho.
I mean,
Maybe the first half of that.
I mean, there's a couple fun opportunities for names, like like I would not be surprised if we had like a feat just called "If It Bleeds," like there.
If it bleeds.
I will say that was "If It Bleeds" was the theme of one of the playtest games Jason Bowman ran for our team as well.
Oh, there you go. Well, we only got like 4, 3, 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So, what other cool stuff can you tell us that is coming out that has not been announced anywhere? Go.
Well, I can tell you part of what we did announce earlier today, which is that moving on from Starfinder for a second, Pathfinder is about to get a formal playtest as well. Mark your calendars for September 1st, because that's when we're going to announce the next big Pathfinder hardcover rulebook, and we'll be putting into playtest 2 new classes in September 1st. So I am very excited about those classes, and I'm even like equally, if not maybe a smidgen more excited about the whole book that's coming out in, and what it means for the setting and what it means for the game. And we already announced this morning that one of the core 20 gods is going to get killed.
Yeah.
And so that's all part of this. We've got a novel coming out that's part of it. So it's going to be this big integrated program for a book that will release in 2025, but that we're announcing on September 1st. So
Wow.
Pathfinder fans should mark their calendars for the next big playtest, which starts in less than a month.
Does he sleep, Thurston?
I have had talks with Erik at like 5
You ever sleep?
Not really.
a.m. my time. Yeah.
I know. I text him. I text you at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and you respond back. And I don't feel bad texting him that late because I know he's
I
up.
mean, if you text
He's gonna be at the same time zone.
if you text me at
too.
like 5 a.m., I'll probably be asleep.
Okay, so 5 a.m. But yeah, no, you guys have been very busy.
Indeed, we have.
yes.
I mean, it's been an interesting year. It's been a scary year. It's been a gratifying year. It's been an exciting year. And where we are right now at Gen Con, it's like my meter is pointed directly to excitement.
Yes.
And we've got so much amazing stuff coming out in the next year, 2 years. Starfinder 2 is a big part of that. And it's just amazing. It's a great time to be playing Pathfinder. It's an exciting time to be playing Starfinder. It's a playtest, so the community has a lot to say about where the game is going, and that's something we plan to listen to, going forward for sure.
And a big thanks to everyone in the chat. Like, as someone who was a developer and now is a manager, but speaking as a developer and someone who works on these games, like this is the time of year where most developers and people who write these games recharge. Like seeing the excitement we feed off of that, like that positive energy, and honestly, sometimes even like, hey, I have a question and maybe I don't like this. Sometimes
Energy in general.
energy in general can like really motivate a team. And so like thanks to all of you for like being here, participating in this, giving us your feedback. That just makes the job worth doing, as corny as that is to say.
Yeah, and there was one super chat that I'll read just because they were nice. They said, "Quick thank you for embracing third-party creators like Roll for Combat or Team Plus." I don't know.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
You know, this has been a community effort from the beginning back in 2007, really, when we started Pathfinder, and it will continue to be so forever, I think. So appreciate it.
Yeah, without community, you can't have a game. We all learned that in the beginning of the year.
We learned all kinds of things.
We learned a lot this year. This is a lot.
It's a year of growth, everybody.
This will be the memorable year. We had the shenanigans. You had Orc. You got the remaster, which I know you completely planned for and had no problem getting out whatsoever.
Wait to live in uninteresting times for once. That'd be cool.
Starfinder Second Edition, even that one took me for a loop. It's not that I didn't think it was coming out. I didn't think you were insane to start it so quickly. And when I heard that, both Mark and I were like, wow. And then we heard it was on Pathfinder too, and we were like, I have to say that is I am so critical of what the other company does, but that is a very, very, very good move in multiple business ways. But on top of it, just why reteach? Why people already knows the rule set. It'll be so much easier for me to now play because I get a lot of people. I love Starfinder. I loved Dead Sons. It's one of my favorite adventures we ever played. And you know, it is a lot to remember 2 rule sets in my brain.
Especially when they're so similar.
They're very similar.
You know?
I'm always getting things confused, and now it's like one rule set.
We built Starfinder at kind of the halfway point with Pathfinder 2, but I would have to say I think most of the truly innovative and most popular parts of Pathfinder 2 kind of came after. You know, so being able to bring those bits into Starfinder is really going to be, I think, good for the game, good for the community. Makes the game a little more fun, a little easier to learn. You know, it's going to be a transition, and it's going to be a play test, and things will change even throughout that process. But I think the change will be for the better, and I'm very excited about it personally.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up, but I'm sure we'll have more of these. I'll probably have you on the show a bit more. You are always around. Don't worry about you.
I'm an easy get.
He's easy to get as long as
it's not 5 in the morning.
I know. So, well, yeah, and
toss some of my other team members on. You know, we
got Thurston on. Thurston would love to come on, and we'll talk more Starfinder. Everyone's been asking when we're going back to Starfinder because that's how Roll for Combat started in Starfinder, and now everyone's Mark and I are already talking. We're already talking about converting all of our dragons to Starfinder. So because you gotta have dragons in Starfinder. So it's getting busy. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
StarfinderPlaytest.com.